is. Politics is fighting for scarce resources, deciding who gets what. That's what politics is about. It ain't about them telling you Black Lives Matter. It ain't about them acknowledging you you're black, that you're black and wearing kente cloth with you, or going to your church and telling you how beautiful you are, or whatever. It's about resources. That's the first thing. It's about the allocation of resources. So you got to stay focused on that. Number two, the number two rule of the Dr. Claud Anderson Rules of American Politics is quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo. Whenever you give something up, you're supposed to get something back, and you need to be very conscious. If you're unconscious, see, consciousness, we talk about being woke and being conscious. A lot of people, they do things in a very unconscious way. And there are people in power that lean on your lack of consciousness to extract things from you. No different from the way people said that maybe they were accusing Cosby of getting women to drink this drug so he could do whatever was going on with them, right? And again, you can believe guilty or innocent, I don't know, but you know that has happened, right? Because they need you unconscious before they can exploit you, right? Well, the same thing happens when it comes to getting anything that you have of value. There are people that are going to try to take it when you're not conscious. If you live in a house with lots of jewels and money inside the house, is the robber going to rob you when you're awake and alert and conscious of what's going on? Or are they going to rob you when you're asleep and you're unconscious of what is happening in your house? The thief will rob you when you are unconscious. Other examples of unconscious resource extraction is when you go shopping. Corporations have studied scientific theories from psychologists on how to take you out of your conscious state, to put you in a dreamlike state, to put you in some sort of altered state, so they can extract money from you, so they can get you to buy things, because they know the studies show that you're more likely to let go of your bread when you're not consciously thinking. You're not sitting there thinking like, oh no, do I really want to spend this much? No, I better not do that, right? There was a guy, there was a millionaire who went into a casino, and he didn't know that casinos give you if you've ever been to a casino, you'll notice they give you lots of liquor. Why do they give you lots of liquor? They're constantly giving you free drinks. Why do you think they always give you liquor when you go to the casino? Because they know that when you're not conscious, you'll gamble. You'll just gamble. It's nice, and the room's a certain temperature, the lighting's set a certain way. There's no windows for you to be able to see that you've been gambling all night. They get you all loosened up. There's no clocks hardly in the casino. All this is strategic to get you to be unconscious, because they want you to lose track and consciousness of space and time and all these other things. They want you sitting in there for a long time, and they want you letting go of your money easy, willy-nilly. So this millionaire literally sued a casino because they kept giving him all these drinks, and he was making bigger and bigger bets, and he ended up gambling away. Like, his fortune was worth $20 million. He gambled away like $18 million. And he sued the casino, and he said, you should have watched me. You should have known. You should have been conscious on my behalf. And, the courts were like, you stupid, man. You let them make you unconscious. You let them fill you up with liquor, and then you lost all your money, because you forget that a fool and his money will always part ways. So the same way the same way a man might want a woman to be of limited consciousness when he's seducing her, or the same way a department store wants you to have a certain consciousness and to get you to spend money, or casino might want you liquored up before you gamble your money. Well, politicians do the same thing. They want you voting in an unconscious sort of way. They want you unfocused. They want you focused on things that don't matter. And some tactics they might use: emotional manipulation. Number one is fear. They get you afraid. When you're afraid, you're not conscious. You're not thinking about what you're giving up. You're only thinking about protecting. So you say, oh my God, it doesn't matter. Let's not ask for anything. We just got to get Trump out of office because we're all going to die. Right? That was the narrative last time, right? There's going to be a new one. There's going to be some other thing that comes along. Maybe it's another pandemic like we had in 2020. Oh my God, everybody's got to get the jab, and if we're all going to die, and if you don't and vote for Biden because that's going to get you, right? I mean, it's every time. I guarantee you, by 2024, watch my words. By 2024, something will occur. There will be something that will be a mass fear event that is going to get that's going to just happen to coincide with the election. And people who are not conscious and who are just focused on the fear and distracted and all that, they're going to just do what they're told. I'm talking to the people who are able to keep your head. So let me read a little more. So the word quid pro quo, I will put that as the second rule of Dr. Claud Anderson's politics. It means something for something, or at a more familiar level, it means if you scratch my back, I'm gonna scratch yours. Those who invest their time, energy, and resources to support a political issue candidate or political party expect to be compensated in a manner that is equal to their investment. In America, this rule of politics applies to everyone except Black people. The primary reason for Black Americans being an exception stems from structural racism and various community pressures and attitudes that set them apart as a political subculture. Political subcultures are typically minimally integrated, and out of fear of losing their lowly status, they do not resist being treated as subjects. So because you want everybody to like you, you go along and do what they tell you to do. Low self-esteem. You're looking for everybody to accept you, and you haven't even learned how to accept yourself. I don't need any of these people to accept me. I don't care if mainstream media ever accepts me. They tried to drag me something terrible when I told them that I didn't like seeing Lizzo have to degrade herself and promote death and obesity to Black people in order to sell a record. They tried to dog me like crazy. They talked about me like a dog. You think I cared? I did not care. I slept well that night. I lost nothing when all the white media wrote probably 10,000 articles about me. I did not care. Why? Well, because I trained myself to not need your acceptance and validation. Where does that come from? It's because I've accepted myself. God accepts me. My mama accepts me. My B1 people accept me. That's all I need. I don't need nothing else outside of that. Right. And that is liberating. That allows you to do what you're supposed to do. You can fulfill your purpose without being distracted. You know, thank you for some of you have commented on the shirt. I was really taking off because I am hot. But yeah, I wear shirts like this all the time because this is what I believe. And so, by the way, we do actually have a t-shirt shop. It's wokeblacktees.com. wokeblacktees.com. So I think the shirt might be up there. I don't remember if it's available or not, but you can go take a look. Blacktees.com. Okay, so let me keep reading. In America, this rule of politics applies to everyone except Black people. Here we go. Lacking population numbers, wealth, and leadership, they reject dissent and passively follow the majority society, even though they may gain only small benefits. This is especially true in the case of Black Americans who traditionally support white candidates and their political parties out of a sense of obligation. History does not show any instances in which Black Americans have been compensated on a quid pro quo basis for the political, cultural, or economic contributions they have made. The worst part of this picture is that Black America has not demanded a quid pro quo relationship. In explaining how Cuban refugees in Miami were able to economically and politically surpass and subordinate Blacks in Miami within 1 decade, a Cuban told me, "We're not like Black people who always march, demonstrate, and then beg. We demand what we want." End quote. Blacks have petitioned for freedom and equality, but never demanded quid pro quo compensation for their political loyalty, labor, patriotism, or cultural contributions. So you ain't getting it because you're not demanding it. That's a problem. That is a problem. Let's keep going. Powernomics urges Black voters to begin moving toward the politics of patronage for the entire race and not just a few visible Blacks. The practice of political patronage rarely, if ever, presents a problem for non-Black groups because most politicians and political parties understand they have to reward their supporters. Both white and Black candidates for public office, various political parties, and this nation all get a free ride with Black voters. Black voters are led to believe that there are two purposes for voting. Pay attention now. One, to elect the white candidate who is best able to lead and control resources, or two, to elect the Black candidate who is most deserving of a public job and personal recognition. Because your self-esteem is low, You just sit back and you worship some honorary Negro who gets some high profile position, and you give him permission to forget all about you. Well, I'm just here to tell you, you're just as important as him. You're just as important as her. They do not have a right to just walk away and act like the Black community does not exist. That is wrong. The most we get is personal satisfaction that the candidates we supported won. That's all you get. You get the adrenaline rush or the dopamine hit of seeing your favorite team win. It's like if I'm a fan of the Dallas Cowboys and they win the Super Bowl, then I'm excited because the Cowboys won and that's my favorite team. But Jerry Jones ain't writing me one single check. He gonna make $100 million that year. He ain't giving me a nickel of that money, and he ain't signing me to no $200 million contract. Others play for the benefits of winning or being in the winner's circle. We play politics just so we can play. We often support campaign issues that do not benefit us. Blackness is excluded, but we hope that through some miraculous twinge of conscience, once in office, the former candidate will offer us some spoils as supporters. So we're just hoping that they're going to be conscious enough to do the right thing. That's a big mistake in politics. Politicians don't have a lot of morality or a lot of conscience. We demand nothing that is based exactly what we get. We have yet to learn to play politics by the basic rules. We should stay out of any political game that promises that we will get nothing, even when our candidate wins. Once we start playing to win, we must always reject candidates who fail to pay their debts to us. Political accommodation is obsolete. Playing American politics based upon the needs and interests of other groups is playing politics just to play. Politics is economic Darwinism. It is rooted in selfish economic aims. Players compete to protect what they have or further their gains. For those who operate from altruistic feelings about helping everyone may play the game, but they will not win. Booker T. Washington was a pro-Black leader. Washington's greatest weakness was his dream of being the great accommodator between Blacks and whites. He destroyed Black Americans' hopes of being an independent and competitive people by telling whites at the Atlanta Fair in 1896 that Blacks were, quote, the most patient, faithful, law-abiding, and unresentful people that the world has ever seen. The white society rewarded Washington and Black Americans for their humble, meek, compassionate, and non-competitive attitudes by subjecting them to another 60 years of Jim Crow semi-slavery. So because they didn't respect you, they just kept slapping you around like you were nothing. Playing and winning in politics must be based on group self-interest and not misplaced group loyalty and faithfulness. Black America's political agenda must be just as narrow and exclusive as white politics, Jewish politics, Hispanic politics, gay politics, and women's politics. And just as other competing groups have elected officials who speak strictly for them, Black people ought to have elected officials who speak for Black people and practice the politics of gaining resources for Black people. The issue is not about getting along socially. With more than 9,000 Black elected officials in America, we are now in a position to practice the politics of getting ahead. Black elected officials cannot challenge the status quo by creating alliances with competing groups. Alliances must be based on common objectives and benefits. Black civil rights organizations cannot help Black Americans by subordinating Black interests and historical needs to ethnic and language groups who are higher in the order of acceptability. Several Hispanic and Korean immigrants told me that they entered this country above Black people and were advised, even before they got here, to avoid association with Blacks. Ethnic immigrants know Blacks were slaves, but they do not understand the legacies of slavery that still handicap Black people. What they do understand is that regardless of how low they might fall, they will never sink as low as Black people. Black Americans' humble, non-competitive attitude toward politics and business reinforces the popular image of Blacks as weak and undemanding and allowing others to take advantage of them. As the farmer said when asked how he planned to get his crops to the market, he said, "It's easy. The willingest jackass will have to pull the heaviest load." For centuries, Black Americans have been the willingest jackass in American politics. Now that role must change. Shout out, can we just give like a thank you, a digital thank you to Dr. Claud Anderson for helping to set us straight and at least helping us understand that you're not crazy if you're also frustrated by what is and is not being done in politics. Let's give like a quick just digital Like, round of applause for Dr. Anderson. I'm gonna tell him we did this because I talk to him about once a week, and he loves you and he wishes he could be here more often. But he's almost 90 now, so I told him just only come in if you feel up to it. If you don't feel up to it, I want you to rest. Okay. One thing that I thought about when I was reading this was I thought about that craziness in San Francisco with the NAACP. You saw that, right? Did anybody else see that? Give me a yes if you saw that last week with the NAACP, and they were talking about giving $5 million in reparations to all the Black people in San Francisco, and the NAACP president, some old man named Amos something, literally he marched with Dr. King. He literally stepped out and said that he rejected the plan of giving money to Black people, and instead we should have government programs. Did anybody see that? And what I really want to thank Amos Brown for, we're gonna call him Meet the Browns. So what I really want to thank Mr. Meet the Browns for is that he didn't even hide the agenda. Like, he made it real plain and real easy. He put a big bullseye on his back and let us all throw darts at it to say, haha, see, this is exactly what we're talking about. It wasn't even like we had to decipher anything or go and speak in code or break down any complex language or look past some sinister agenda. Mr. Amos made it simple. He just right there, all of his language was straight out of the Civil Rights Negro Democratic Party playbook that says, don't give resources to Black people because Black people are too stupid to control their own resources. They need government programs. And Lord knows we have had enough government programs that have completely failed, where the money went to all these administrators and nonprofit organizers and everything else who are doing nothing for the community, just collecting a salary, pretending to do work for the Black community. Now, Gerard says that he's backtracked and said it was taken out of context. I'm going to take him for what he wrote in that press release. And what I saw in that press release was I saw that they were against the idea of giving money directly to Black families, and they instead wanted money for educational programs. They wanted money for some kind of community center. I mean, this is reparations. This is one of the largest, potentially largest wealth transfers in American history that you're talking about. And you're talking about a damn community center. You better get off that stage before somebody comes and puts a cane around your neck and pulls you off, man. Like, if any statement in history has ever screamed, it's time for me to retire, that's it. That's it. Like, put that man in, like, thank him for his service, put him to the side. Young people, young leaders in the community, you must step up and remove people like that. If I ever get to talking that crazy, please just take me off the stage, because I've clearly lost my mind. And so with that whole thing with the NAACP, I like the fact that he said what he said at that moment, because it really shows you exactly why progress hasn't been made. You sat there, you remember the word poor stands for what? Anybody know what the word poor stands for? It's an acronym. POOR. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. Well, this is an opportunity. Reparations is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to finally get some things right, get a little money in our pockets so we can actually make some things happen, execute on some of those plans, get that business going, start that organization, or build that school that we're trying to build, right? Like that's an opportunity. Well, when you've got gatekeepers that step in and block those opportunities and take the money and say, no, put it over here in the government program that's going to maintain the status quo. That's when you just got to go and kind of beat those people up a little bit, not beat them up physically. I'm not talking about I'm talking about just like, you better step off that stage before we remove you. Another example where you missed an opportunity was with the pandemic, when everybody on earth wanted to give money to Black organizations because they suddenly felt bad for about 6 months about police shootings. So they were writing $100 million checks to gatekeeper organizations like Black Lives Matter. That money did not get to the Black community. So what has to occur at the very least, here's a game plan. And I'm hoping that everyone here is supporting various Black media outlets, independent Black-owned media outlets that you respect, like maybe this one, maybe this is one you support and some others, and taking a proactive role in helping those outlets grow. Like every time you're sharing on social media, every time you grab the link and you put it on your Facebook, or you lead a conversation somewhere on Clubhouse or wherever, or on your own YouTube channel to share a similar message, that helps us get the message out further. So the reason I think that's an important game plan is because what that allows us to do is that whenever somebody comes along and tries to screw up an opportunity, we can at least speak and derail that a little bit, right? We can sort of, because in Black Lives Matter, it wasn't like the people, there weren't people that were questioning what was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. It wasn't like there weren't people who knew that it was kind of a Marxist leftist agenda sort of in disguise, sort of using racism and Blackness to kind of cloak a leftist agenda. Like people knew that. Right. So imagine if people who are saying these things have my gigantic platforms where they can reach millions and millions of Black folks, where we can all sort of see it and understand it together at the same time, so that people say, oh, nope, not falling for the okie doke. I see what you're doing over there. Right. And then at that point, perhaps that gives an opportunity to make sure the opportunity does not get missed. So that when corporations are writing those big $100 million checks, or NBA players are wearing, Black Lives Matter t-shirts and everything else, that those millions of dollars in resources don't just get wasted. That was a multi-billion-dollar opportunity that was thrown out the window. You have so many other opportunities that get lost. Even when you talk about, I love to talk about things like economic intelligence and how important that is as a core value, because you have when you have let's say a basketball player like the guy Ja Morant, who's out here acting a fool, and he just signed a $2 million contract. Well, that's an opportunity. That man could build a $1 billion entity that can employ 10,000 people if he had the right people around him. If he sat down, if that was my son and I was able to get him to sit down and say, son, look, let me control your money. I'm not going to take a penny of that money, but that's your money, but I'm going to control it. I'm not going to let you touch 95% of it. I'm going to put over here and manage for you and grow this into an organization that will sustain your family for the next 200, 300 years, because you stupid idiot, you could be feeding your great grandchildren, but instead you out here acting like a damn idiot. You're out here throwing away generational legacy. You're throwing away the next 200 years of the Morant legacy because you're being influenced by a bunch of stupid thugs, by a culture that wants you to be as dumb as possible as a Black man, that literally has you thinking about what's happening around you right now instead of all the things that could be happening around you and your descendants for the next 200 or 300 years. It's insane to me. It's nuts. Like I get violently angry when I see that, because I don't see what y'all see. When I see Ja Morant throwing away his money, I don't see what y'all see. I don't see what everybody else sees. Everybody else sees a $200 million contract. I see a multi-billion-dollar economic empire that could employ thousands of people. That's what I see. So every time he blows his money, he's not blowing $1, he's blowing $10. He's not blowing $1 million, he's blowing 10 million. He's not blowing 100 million, he's blowing $1 billion. That's what I see, because I understand how money grows. So the word poor stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. There are a few people that I've met who are very prominent that I respect their minds because they understand bigger visions. Two people in hip hop in particular that I've seen up close that have that vision were Russell Simmons and Ice Cube. That's why we got along. I didn't get along with Kanye. Kanye's different. Russell and Ice Cube, we understood each other because if you recall, Russell was one of the few people who saw the $1 trillion opportunity presented by hip hop back in the 1970s when he had Curtis Blow rapping. Remember, Run DMC was just a group he threw together. It was his brother in the group, right? It wasn't like he did a nationwide talent search to find the best rapper. He just found his brother and said, let me teach you how to rap. And his brother learned how to rap. And next thing you know, the group is world famous, right? And Russell has always understood that. He's an industrialist. He's the Henry Ford of hip hop to some extent, right? Or somewhat like that. Ice Cube is similar. Ice Cube, if you recall, was one of the few people who understood, even again, gangster rap, it's controversial, right? You can definitely critique that because there's a lot of negatives that might come out of that culture. So we can't let that off the hook. However, if you go back and you study the history of NWA and you study what Ice Cube was doing in South Central and Compton as they were dropping the drugs and the chaos in South Central LA, he understood, okay, I think we really got something here. I think we have an opportunity here. And so when Jerry Heller, the smart Jewish businessman, tried to get him to sign his life away, thinking he was another dumb, stupid, short-sighted black teenager who only cares about women and cars and jewelry, he did not sign that contract. He said, no, I'm not giving away my whole future in exchange for a couple $100,000. And so you have people that I think understand these things. And what I encourage you to do is teach your kids to really listen to people that have a broad vision. Listen to the people who don't just see what's there. Listen to the people who see what could be there if those resources are protected and nurtured and grown in an appropriate way. When an athlete goes into the NBA and makes $100 million, that is a multi-billion-dollar empire that is right in front of him, because the NFL was started with less than a couple of $1,000. Do y'all understand that the NFL, when they were buying the Green Bay Packers for like $50 and the Chicago Bears for $200, that was started by visionaries who said, yeah, this is only $2,000 now, but give it a couple of generations. This will be an $80 billion, $100 billion entity, right? There were people that kind of saw some of that, right? And it didn't take that long. It took about 40, 50 years before the NFL was really something, before you had those multi-million-dollar franchises. So it wasn't like they had to wait thousands of years for it to happen. They waited two or three decades. That's all it took. So what I want you to really understand is what's around you, how much wealth there is around you, but you really got to try to see it. You got to, and then things like faith have to kick in. Wealth principles have to sort of be a part of your space and your family, where you're nurturing, protecting, and growing the things that you have. And that's how you compete economically. And the thing about it that I found too was, we're one area where Powernomics and I, where I struggle with Powernomics sometimes is I tell Dr. Anderson, I say, guys, some of your visions in the book are big visions. They're multi-billion. Like he'll talk about how we can take over a whole industry and things like that. And I say, Dr. Anderson, I'm not that good at, necessarily creating multi-billion-dollar ideas, because we don't have billions. We don't have that kind of money to do that overnight. I believe we can do it long term, but it's hard to do in a few years, because I don't know how to get 40 million Negroes I don't know how to get 40 million brainwashed black people on the same page. I don't know how to do that. I know how to grab that top 2 million, that 5-10% that get it. I know how to talk to them. I know how to preach to the choir, but I can't preach to the heathens. I can't preach to people and it's not even about being a heathen. It's when you are a stubborn, determined heathen. Well, it's not that you don't know. It's that you have a bunch of other stuff that you think you know. So it's not that you're uneducated. That's easy. It's easy to deal with an uneducated person. It's hard to deal with a horrifically, abusively miseducated person who will fight and argue and get mad at you the whole time. Like you're like, okay, if you want to lose weight, let's go to the gym. No, I don't want to go to the gym. I want to eat cupcakes, because cupcakes are going to make me healthy. The more cupcakes I eat, the better, the more fit I'm going to be. Right? And you're arguing like, no, let me show you the studies. The studies show if you keep eating cupcakes, you're going to get diabetes. You're going to keep gaining weight. It's not going to work. No, cupcakes work. Because I spent 20 years learning how cupcakes are good for your health. Right? You can't argue with it's they say it's hard to win an argument with a smart person. It's impossible to win an argument with an idiot. It's hard to win an argument with a smart person, but it's impossible to win an argument with an idiot. When somebody is dumb and lost and gone and committed to whatever stupid stuff somebody else taught them, I'd leave them for the streets. Let Jesus handle that. And let's talk to the people that at least are open-minded enough to hear a little bit of what I have to say. You ain't even got to agree. I never tell you to agree with what I'm saying. I don't tell you to believe me just because Boyce Watkins said it. No, I say it and say, look, I just hope I have so much confidence in the ideas that I just say to you, look, just consider it, just think about it. Just, and if it makes sense, just maybe try it, just kind of hear me out. And let me tell you, like that's all I'm asking you to do. Because I don't have to, when you present something that makes sense, that is fundamentally true, that has a proven track record of actually working, you don't have to sell that anymore. You don't have to convince, a smart person. Like, I don't have to convince you that sending your children off to work for white people is good for their mental health. I don't have to convince you of that, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. If I say corporate plantation, you're like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. I know what that's like, right? You know these things because you have your own experiences, right? So really, I think in general, if we don't, if you don't want to be poor, you cannot pass over your opportunities that are around you. Also, another thing I would love to help you with is identifying the opportunities that do exist around you. And part of that means getting out of the victim box and stop believing that because you're lowly and black, that all you can do is sit around in your misery and wait for a white person to come along and possibly save you. That is the ultimate. A if there was ever an easier pathway to slavery, that would be it. That would be the most direct pathway to being a slave that there possibly is. Because even if they free you, you're only free for as long as somebody else decides that you are. Okay. All right. So let me keep reading. And by the way, tomorrow we do have that stock options training camp that starts Thursday night. So if you'd like to join us, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. We're going to do 2 days, Thursday nights at 8 o'clock for 2 weeks, and all the materials are yours for life. Also, you get free access to a whole stock options mini class. So if you have an interest in stock options, feel free to join us. Just go to boycewatkins.com. The link is right there. And also, I have a list of some AI stocks that I'm invested in. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. It's the class for beginners. Yes, it's stock options for beginners. So we're going to literally start from the very beginning. And by the time you're done, you will be very comfortable with stock options. You'll be able to read the charts and grids. I'll answer 10 million of your questions. And that's what the whole focus is going to be. So feel free to join us for class tomorrow night. And also I'll be in Houston. So on the 21st of April for Black Wealth Boot Camp, we're going to do 2 days in Houston. So if you'd like to join us in the Black Wealth Boot Camp, it's a lot of fun. We have a good time. We also learn a lot. So feel free to come down to Houston and we're going to do that. We're going to do something similar to what we did in LA. So feel free to come down. I mean, your stock market class, is the information different? Yes. Stock market investing is all about buying stocks. Stock options are sort of a supplement to your stock market portfolio. And then also I put together this class for beginners because some of you may be in a stock market or stock options class even, but for some people, it helps them to see the material presented live. But if you're already in some sort of stock options program that I have, you can actually go in and there's stuff recorded already that you can take a look at if you want to learn in that way. So I'm doing the live session because sometimes people like the live training where I'm answering questions. So I do a live stock options training maybe once a year, once or twice a year, maybe. Okay. So that's what we're doing starting tomorrow. So you can just go to boycewatkins.com if you'd like to sign up. And of course, you guys know, I have the new book and it's doing really well. Thank you guys for supporting it. It's the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And you can find it on either Amazon or you can go to my website. It's totally up to you. Amazon is just as easy. Amazon will get it to you in a couple of days, whereas my team might take about a week. We can't ship as fast as Amazon, to be honest with you. So if you want it quickly, feel free to just go to Amazon. Don't worry about Amazon taking their cut. I don't mind that. I just want you to see the book. And if you could just leave a review, because the reviews are really good and the reviews also help to strengthen the book. And it's a bestseller. It was the number one bestseller in this category. I don't know if it's still number one, but I know it's top 5. All right. So let me read a little bit more and then we're going to bounce out for tonight. So Dr. Anderson says that political accommodation is obsolete. He says playing American politics based upon the needs and interests of other groups is playing politics just to play. He says politics is economic Darwinism. So he says the new Black political orientation on page 189 in Powernomics, he says the new Black political orientation must be practicing the politics of gaining resources rather than the politics of morality and establishing civil rights. So in your politics, the rule of Dr. Anderson, so we talked about the first rule. Well, let's see, one of the number 2 was quid pro quo. I need to write this down because I'm making this up as we go along. Quid pro quo. Number 1 was that politics is all about resources. And then I would say that maybe rule number 3 is that politics are not about morality and establishing civil rights, right? So they love to sort of say, if you vote for us, we'll give you your voting rights. Honestly, I feel like you already have your voting rights. I don't think anybody's going to come along and say you can't vote. I just haven't seen that. Maybe if they say you need an ID in order to vote, I guess if you're just not smart enough to know how to go get an ID from the state, then maybe you can ask us and we can show you how to do it. I personally think that those voter ID conversations are a complete waste of time, and I believe that they were created for immigrants. I think that they're talking more so about illegal immigrants voting than talking about you. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't give me a yes if what I'm saying makes any sense, in the sense that I don't understand this whole, like, how so much time is spent talking about how hard it is for Black people to get an ID. Are you not? I mean, is it harder than last time I checked, when I wanted an ID, I could just go right down and get an ID. Get my driver's license, get whatever kind of ID. So that whole voter ID conversation is probably the dumbest political conversation I've ever heard in my life, to be honest with you. Forgive me if I offended anybody by saying that, but I really still to this day have not met a Black person who can't get an ID. I know people who are illegal immigrants can't get an ID, but I don't know. So somebody says it is hard to get an ID in certain states when you move. So maybe when you move, maybe that's it, right? So if you're moving, so maybe that's is that what they're talking about? Black people who are moving from state to state? Is that it? I don't know if that's a large percentage of the population, or are they talking about felons? Maybe is that what's hard? I don't know. I think the whole ID conversation, I get a sense they're talking about illegal immigrants. I don't think they're talking about you. So I don't even pay attention. I think when they have, if I was on a panel and they started having a long conversation about voter ID laws, I would probably get up and walk off that panel and go find something more important to do, like I don't know, eating a cheeseburger or something. All right. So let's see here. So the new Black political orientation must be practicing the politics of gaining resources rather than the politics of morality and establishing civil rights. Those who own and control resources have both rights and might. Therefore, based upon our group self-interest, we should use the political process to redistribute America's resources, redress historical injustices committed against Black people, and improve socioeconomic conditions within Black communities so that Black people can have functional communities in which to work and live. We could greatly benefit from practicing group politics predicated on group-based advantages that can help us own and control wealth, land, businesses, and other resources. 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 Businesses, land, other resources, and wealth. That word is blow. We talked about Curtis Blow. I like to remember things in acronyms. So let's flip it around. Blow, Curtis Blow. So we want that blow, not that illegal blow, but that Curtis Blow. And we want you to know that these are the breaks. This is how Black people are voting now. Businesses, land, ownership of other resources. Let's say the O stands for ownership. This can be the fourth rule, the fourth law of Dr. Claud Anderson voting. I'm making this up as we go along, but we're in the studio. We're making music right now. And then the W is wealth. Blow. That's it. We want that blow. That's it. We need y'all to get past the nonsense. Let go of all the what did he say here? He said the morality and he talked about morality and civil rights and morality and all that, white people liking us and all that. That's nice, but we really want that blow. And and the blow stands for businesses, land, ownership, and wealth. Businesses, land, ownership, and wealth. Businesses and land, ownership, and wealth. Why is that important? Why is that important? Because if you are Black and you and your kids are able to have businesses, land, ownership, and wealth, white people really don't control your life like that at all. They just don't. They just don't. I don't necessarily think we need $1 trillion or multi-billion-dollar plan for Black people. I'm not saying that wouldn't help. I'm saying I don't think we need that. In order for you to be free, I really want you to at least have your $100,000 plan or your $1 million plan. That plan will get you as free as you need to be. When I was able to train myself to not have to work for my oppressor anymore, and I could then set up my home office in my basement, lock the door, and there's no Proud Boys coming in my house. There's no Klansmen breaking in my front porch. There's no white politician. There's no old boss from Home Depot coming in and telling me what to do. My life became a whole lot better. It really became a whole lot better. And then at that point, my only objective was to say, how do we make sure we preserve our resources as a family enough that we have food and shelter and can pay our utilities and not have to go and work for anybody else in order to make that happen? So when I talk to my kids, I'd say, look, I don't really think you have to go change the whole world. All you got to do is look at your world and look at what you need and give yourself the skill to get the things that you need. And then you're going to be okay. Most Black people don't have freedom in their lives because they can't figure out how to make $5,000 a month without having to go work for white people. That's it. It's about $5,000 a month. That's the difference between freedom and slavery for a lot of Black people. If they could figure out how to make $5,000 a month and stay at home, they'd be staying at home with their kids all day. They'd be spending time with their spouse. They'd be hanging out with their mama. They'd be around their own folks all day long. They wouldn't be at Amazon or UPS or McDonald's or wherever they're working. They wouldn't be at those places dealing with the daily microaggressions that drive you crazy and make you sick and cause Black men to die at an early age. They wouldn't be dealing with all that. So all you got to do, the number one game changer for your children is to create that blow, right? I know blow it makes you think about the movie Blow, right? But really, it is like a dope. Actually, believe it or not, what's really funny now that I'm thinking about it is they say that money affects the same region of your brain as cocaine. That literally making money, it feels just as good to make money as it feels to use drugs. So I get high all the time, not on just money. I get high on life. I find dopamine injections from spending time with my wife and kids. I get dopamine injections by being a free and intelligent Black man. I get dopamine injections of knowing that I can take care of myself and I don't have to beg anybody for anything, right? So ultimately, maybe blow is a good word. Maybe this is the kind of the new drug, right? To me, the drug is power. The drug is freedom, right? And I can tell you what, once you take a hit of that drug, you're gonna be like like Pamela said, you're gonna be flying like an airplane. It's funny, Pamela's last name is Coakley. But anyway, but Pamela, you're flying like a plane. Once you get a hit of freedom, once you just feel it, once you know what it feels like, you can't go backward. I don't know if anybody else has ever lived that. Maybe some of you are independent entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But it gets to the point where even if you're not making as much money, you're still like, man, I like staying at home. I like sleeping in. I like not being told what to do. I like doing work that I love, even if my money isn't as tight. And then what happens is it just starts changing the whole DNA of who you are. Why? Well, because you were never supposed to get up and go to work for a corporation every day in the first place. That's not natural. Rockefeller and some of the other industrialists worked very hard to develop a public school system that spent 12 years training you to think like a worker so that you'll think that it was normal to go spend more time with your boss than you spend with your own kids. And then when the pandemic snapped you out of that, when the pandemic helped you regain your consciousness again, and you snapped out of it, what happened? Suddenly it's like, well, we can't get people to go to work. I went to eat at Cheesecake Factory and they said we cut the menu in half because we can't find workers. We don't have enough people to work. And then we bought a house in Atlanta. We went, and I was happy because the house was in a plaza where they had a little Starbucks. I went to the Starbucks and the Starbucks was closed at like 1 p.m. I said, why is the Starbucks closed at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday? And they said, because we don't have enough workers. Right. And right now, Starbucks is testifying in front of Congress, defending their position where they were very woke and very, conscious until their workers started forming labor unions and asking for more money. Then suddenly they were like, oh, no, we can't do that because the shareholders aren't going to like that. They'll give you the warm and fuzzy. They'll give you the symbolism, but they don't want to give you the money. What are you talking about? So they have a new CEO simultaneously. So the old CEO, Howard Schultz, is a true story. The old CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, was testifying before Congress, and he basically saying, I have billions of dollars. I earned it. I don't owe anybody anything. I don't feel bad about it. And they were challenging him on the fact that they fought so hard to stop Starbucks workers from forming unions. Bernie Sanders was on him about that. Shout out to Bernie for that. That's one of the things I like about this guy. He fights for workers' rights. That's very important in America. You've lost some of that. Simultaneously, the new CEO of Starbucks made an announcement that in order to connect with the workers, he's going to spend I think they said he's going to spend an hour a month or something, or a few hours a month working as a barista. He's going to go to the Starbucks restaurant and he's going to sit in there and make coffee all day just so he can relate to the workers. And they're like, oh, that's such a cool guy, but he ain't sharing that money now. But he'll go and do symbolic things in order for you to feel better. But when you start asking about the money and you start having those big boy grown-up conversations, then that's when people start getting mad. That's when they start realizing that you're no longer someone that they can exploit. You're now a competitor. So Black people can learn from this. When you're having little children conversations, like, we really want you to tell us that Black Lives Matter, or we really want you to give us a statue of Martin Luther King in front of a building, right? When you're having those little children conversations, like we're going to go march and pray about somebody killing us, then people will give you that all day. But when you start having grown-up big boy conversations where you say, no, we want to be in the room with the people that are controlling the billions of dollars in resources and we want our cut, just understand When you have those conversations, you're going to lose friends. When people in power that are exploiting you realize that you suddenly gain the consciousness to start asking the hard questions, they're going to naturally get mad, as they should, because now you're asking for a piece of the pie. There has never been a pimp in history who was happy to find that the old prostitute that he used to have hooked on drugs, that was happy to get a couple nickels and a fur coat, is suddenly saying, no, I should be a 50-50 partner in this venture. In fact, I should get 80% of the money because I'm doing 100% of the work, right? No pimp has ever been happy when she wanted to have that conversation. So the same thing is true with Black people. They're not going to be happy when you start having the big boy conversations. They're going to get mad at you. They're going to talk bad about you. And you have to be okay with that. So to some extent, you're not getting what you deserve because it maybe from a self-esteem standpoint, as a community, we're not ready for that. That's why I talk about things about how relevant, how important we are, so that you're able to walk away from the table in an appropriate negotiation. When you study negotiation theory, I read a whole book about how to negotiate properly. One thing they said about negotiating properly is that you must always have a credible threat. A credible threat means that you must always show that you have the ability to walk away from the table. If you do not pose a credible threat, then you will not be taken seriously by the other party. Period. So ladies, if you're in a relationship with a man who is treating you bad and you keep threatening to leave, but you never do anything, then he's going to eventually figure out that you're not a credible threat. You're not really going to go anywhere. He's not going to change his behavior. But if he comes home one day and he sees that you packed your bags, you moved to your mother's house, and you have a date scheduled for next Tuesday, then watch him show up at your front door with roses. He's going to be crying. He's going to be on one knee, and he's going to promise you that he's going to be a better man. Now, will he keep that promise? I don't know, but you'll see a dramatic change in his behavior. If you're working for a boss and you tell your boss, hey, I need a raise, and they say, we don't have the money, and you say, well, you know what, I'm making 60,000, I should be making 75. People that are as good as me are making 75, and people in my field are making this much money, I should get more than that. They're not going to believe that. What you do is you get up and you go get an offer. You go get an offer from another company, and you apply for a job. You get them, you do the interview, you get them to make an offer, and then you take the offer sheet and you put it on your boss's desk and say, here's an offer for you. Here's what I'm going to do. If you're not interested in matching, I'm going to give you the courtesy of allowing you to match what this company's offering me. You're gonna have to actually pay me a little bit more now because I'm already kind of thinking about leaving. And if you match, then I'll stay. If you don't match, then I'm going to go. And I'm okay either way. That's the key. You must negotiate to the point where you're indifferent. And the ability to negotiate to the point where you're indifferent, to the point where you're okay with walking away, means that you must absolutely positively have options. You must always have options. You must always think in your mind, what am I going to do? Am I going to be okay if I walk away from this negotiation? And if the answer is no, then go ahead and, submit and surrender. Just give in, give your boyfriend what he wants, or give your boss what they want, and just, whatever. But if you can figure out a way to give yourself options, then you have gained power in the negotiation. So I believe Black people have options. That's my point. What they do in order to lock you in. Remember, we read earlier in the very beginning. I'm going to go full circle to the beginning of the conversation, and then we're going to close down for the night. If you remember in the beginning, I was giving you the things that an abuser does in order to maintain control. One of the things that they do is they isolate you to make you feel like you have no options. Right? You take that woman away from her family, away from her support base, away from all the places she could go if she decides to leave you, then that gives you more power. So when it comes to election season, what do they do? What do they do? Do they give you options? Do they say, hey, you could vote Democrat, Republican, Independent, or you could not vote at all? Do they lay out all the options for you? Or do they say it's either Democrat or Republican? Either you're Democrat or Republican, that's it. And if you notice, every time I have that conversation, I always say, no. Actually, I have the option of abstaining. And there is a whole body of literature in political science that says that abstinence is a viable political strategy, that abstinence sometimes can be more impactful than actually voting. Because when you abstain, when you take away your vote and you show them you ain't scared to do that, then guess what? They show up and they modify their behavior. So you have to understand how to have those hard conversations and just understand, look, it ain't personal, but I need to get mine for my family. I need to represent the people I care about, just like you're representing the people you care about. If it's good enough for you, then it's good enough for me. If you want me to do something for you that you would not do for me, then that makes me a sucker, and I'm not born a sucker. I was not born. My mama didn't give birth to no suckers up in here. So that's a good litmus test. You must ask yourself this, and this is how I do business. I literally did this in business not too long ago, where somebody offered me a deal, and they were like, "Oh, Boyce, it'd be a great deal. Boyce, you should take this deal. You should take this deal." I said, "Okay, how about this? How about I offer you the same deal? You want me to do this for you and come on and do that? How about I offer you the same deal? So you're offering me this much money to do this thing. So I'm going to offer you the same deal. I'll pay you to do the exact same thing you just asked me to do. And you know what they said? They said, no, thank you. I said, exactly. Get the fuck out of my face. Says, excuse my French. I told you I wasn't going to cuss, but that's exactly what that's what I said. I said that to my team. I said, conversation is done. This shows me they do not see us as equals. This shows us that they do not have respect. I do not do business with anybody who does not respect who we are and where we come from. And another example where that did occur, as I talked to you guys about that white guy, Grant Cardone. When Grant Cardone wanted to come on my podcast, I knew why he wanted to come in there because he likes to recruit Black people. So I said, okay, fine. Tell them that he can come on my podcast after I go on his. So have me on yours and let me talk to your people, and then I'll bring you on mine, and then you can talk to my people. You know what happened? We never heard from them again because my mama gave birth to 0 suckers. This is a sucker-free society up in this house, and I am on a complete sucker diet. I have no suckerness in my system, and you're not going to play me like that. So ultimately, what I would encourage you to do is don't let them train you to be a damn sucker. Believe in yourself. You're going to be okay. I don't care what you do in the next election. You can vote Democrat, you can vote Republican, you can vote independent, you can vote whatever you want. And I will love you and support you no matter what, especially if you're taking care of your family, if you're doing the best you can with yourself and you're improving your life and you want to be educated and you're working hard and you're planning for the future and all that, you're going to be fine. You will survive. You are worthy, whether they say you're worthy or not. To hell with those damn people. You got everything you need right here. That's it. We walk in with that attitude, then watch the rest of the world. They will either cooperate or they're going to vacate. Either one, I do not care. One way or the other. All right, I'm getting out of here. It was fun. Thank you all for hanging out with me. We've been sitting here for 1 hour and 45 minutes. And we're going to do the book club again next week. So the book is Powernomics. You can go to powernomics.com to get a copy if you haven't done that yet. We love Dr. Anderson. So if you have extra money, I'm going to ask you this forever. If a holiday comes up or birthday, or you just feeling extra Black that day, buy extra copies and just give them away. Like, I really need everybody to be a part of the movement, a part of the revolution, right? This is not that we have nobody on the sideline. Everybody is a player in the game, and everybody's contribution makes a difference. So if you some of y'all are doing well, and if you have extra money and you want to go there and flood his website, that would mean a lot for me. And also tomorrow, don't forget, we're doing the stock options training camp. So if you want to join the stock options training camp, just go to boycewatkins.com, or you can also go to boycewatkins.com and get that list of AI stocks that I mentioned. And last but not least, my new book is the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. That's on Amazon. And and then in Houston, I'll be in Houston April 21st and 22nd. So if you want to hang out with us in Houston for 2 days, just go to boycewatkins.com and you can look for the Black Wealth Bootcamp schedule on that screen, and you'll find it there. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good night, and thank you all for listening.